Morning, this is Mornings with Michael for information and educational purposes only. I was just trying to move down the little bar on our recording so we can see more of the picture. This is Bitcoin, had a big sell-off earlier, pulled back to 58,000, tried to bounce here. I think we're going to be range bound for quite some time, possibly all through September. Things aren't going to move until the Fed actually does something, and it may not move until 2025. So what we're going to be doing is continue to sell options on what we own, and that is how we're going to kind of monitor that. We're taking the option that we can close that account at any time and close out our options, but that's how we're going to be playing that one. Let's go to the word of the day. The word of the day is Jocose. Jocose is our word of the day. I believe it is playful. Or doesn't want to really move down. We're just going to pause for 1 second. So we are back. Jocose has a Latin origin. Its playdate was filled with jocose laughter. So let us go over to our S&P 500 heat map, see how things ended. We're just going to refresh this. NVIDIA did bounce. We're going to take a look at a little later. Danger is that it may be a triple top, a little bearish signal. We'll continue to watch that. Amazon is up big today. Tesla is up big. Eli Lilly, Broadcom is up. So that's all the FANG stock are bouncing back. Financials are doing well. Industrials, utilities, and basic materials. So that is the story. If you're at all concerned about a hard landing, this is something you may want to look at. You spent your lifetime building up your wealth. You don't want it to be turning into a 201k for 401k. As you can see, this beats index investing by about 5% per year. It only goes up when the market goes up, does not go down when the market goes down. So you do not want to turn it back into something like 2008. If you'd like to have any more information, feel free to reach out. Let us go over to our charts. This was our ETF of the day. Later, we're going to look at some of the top holdings in this ETF. Now we're going to look at the dollar index. Dollar index is bouncing here. This is also putting a little pressure on cryptocurrencies as this is bouncing off the bottom. Not sure why our line doesn't want to, there we go, work. See if it pulls back. Right now it's bumped its head out against a 20-day moving average. We'll see if it gets up to the black 200-day moving average up above. And we typed in the wrong symbol, silver. It's pulling back as the dollar gets strong. Gold is doing similar. Copper, it's holding steady. Uranium is bouncing. Favorite uranium miner. So this looks like it's working on a cup with a handle type formation. Continue on to the bond yields. Bond yields are bouncing as well. So this may be putting a little pressure on the small capitalization stocks as it gets above the 20-day moving average. It's up 1.14% today to 3.91%. And the 20-year Got a pretty strong move as well, almost up 2% to 3.11%. Take a look at the VIX. The volatility index is actually down today, down about 3%. S&P 500 looks like it's getting close to the pivot here. We'll see if it can cross there. It's up almost 1%. The equal weight in the S&P 500, you take out all those strong 7 pretty big tech stocks, and it is up 0.77%. It's up pretty strong for the day. The NASDAQ is up slightly, 1.19. The equal weight in the NASDAQ is up a little stronger, 1.2%. Small caps, even though interest rates are increasing, are up 0.5%, and the Dow Jones Industrials are up 0.56%. We'll take a look at some of the subsectors. XLF is up almost 1%, pretty strong move. Communications, where Google and Meta are, it's up about 0.67%. Real estate, up almost 1%. So real estate bounced off of its 10-day, and so does XLU. KSPI, the biotech, sold off and it's bouncing back 0.35%. And IBB sold off initially and bouncing back. Take a look at LabU. Triple hedged. And the biotech is up 1.14%. We do have a position in LabU. SMH up 2.33%. Solar of 1.23%. Got a big strong move with Amazon and Tesla up big in the consumer discretionary select. Consumer staples bouncing off of the 10-day moving average. Look at software. It's bouncing off of the 10-day. Technology bouncing up 1.3%. Transportation had a nice move, 1.22%. We looked at, I believe we looked at building materials. This was our ETF of the day. This was our stock of the day, MDB, I believe. It's up 18% on earnings today, even though the earnings were down 25%. Our IPO of the day, we'll just bring that up. Up here in a moment. Is KSPI. This is our IPO of the day. Looks like it's breaking out pretty tight levels right here. Nothing is guaranteed because we got breakout, it looks like right here. You draw the line right across here, it's up 1.25%. But we can take a look at our IPO of the day yesterday, and it got a big sell-off. And nothing is guaranteed. Pull back down to, looks like it's declining 10-day, and then got a little buying support to pull back to the 20-day. So we'll continue to watch that. Down 10.7% after being, I believe, was up 12% yesterday. So let us go to our news right now. New Mpox strain appears to be changing rapidly as cases develop across the African countries. According to the CDC, stated in risk of Mpox coming into the US is low, though there have been confirmed cases in Sweden and Thailand and people who travel to Africa. Impacts continue after millions were advised to evacuate. The typhoon Chan hit southwest Japan yesterday. Toyota, Nissan, Honda, Sony, Tokyo Electron were among companies suspending factory operations as power outages impacted the area. Let's now move on to our stock sector news. First, we move into consumer. Ulta Beauty Q2 EPS 530 versus 546, and that's going to drop on that. It does. It's down 4%. We know Warren Buffett made a big investment in Ulta Beauty recently, but that didn't propel the stock any. Lulu Athletica shares initially fell, turned green last night after reporting Q2 EPS 315 versus 293, and they were pretty flat for the day at 0.18% in green. Moving on, Dollar General. Influential analyst Chuck Grom of Gordon Haskett downgrades Dollar General to hold from buy with a $90 price target. And it cascaded down quite heavily. It was down another 1.26% today. And Tyson Foods names Kurt Callaway CFO. Troubled sky on John Tyson remains with the company. And it pulls back to its 10-day moving average and bounces. It's up 0.23%. And moving on to energy, industrials, and materials. 3D System shares fell last night after reporting Q2 EPS 14-cent loss versus a 4-cent loss was predicted. They're down 8.15% today. Intuitive Machines, Lunar, initially gapped up and then sold off, launched 21% higher after the company reported winning 116.9 NASA lunar contract award last night. They're only up 3% after that news during regular hours. And Viri Corporation announced the sale of Reed Minerals to SpySide Equity for $45 million last night, and their stock is up 3.5%. Looks like it's trying to clear a base here. IPG announced selling Russian operations for $51 million yesterday. There are too many letters in there. And they're selling off 1.2% today. A-Mark Precious Metals last night reported preliminary Q4 EPS $1.20 versus 69 cents. Initially selling off, and they rocket higher at up 9%. Tesla Beijing, to recall, 870 imported Model X EVs. China regulator says, so the stock is up 3.8% today. It is kind of working on the right side of a base. We'll see if it can do so as a number of big-time investors continue to sell. Nucana PLC shares fall 40% in after-hours trading yesterday, and they're down 52% in regular hours following Nucana update on their phase 2 randomized colorectal cancer study, which showed it was unlikely to meet the objective. So that is the story there. Ouch is all you can say. It is down $4.07 on to After the close last night, former President Trump says he will have insurance company cover IVF costs. The average cost of the traditional IVF cycle in the United States can range from 14,000 to 20,000 or more. Another electioneering spending proposal. So P3 announced last night that Leif Pearson, an experienced finance, operational, and value-based care executive, will join the company as CFO effective October 1st. And that didn't do much to help the stock. This is definitely a penny stock. Evoke Pharma files $50 million mixed security shelf last night, and they're down 0.46%, another penny stock. And Grail, results of Grail's Galleria multi-cancer early detection blood test in prostate cancer, published in JCO Precision Oncology, shows efficacy, but it's still down close to 5%. And on to technology, media, and telecom. Domo reported last night Q2 EPS of 7-cent loss versus estimate of 16-cent loss. Initially rallied and then sold off 3.24%. On to Marvel. Cursor back over here. Marvel was rallying earlier today on Q2 adjusted EPS 30 cents versus estimate 30 cents. And they gap up on a negative 9% earnings year over year quarter, up 9.16%. Dell Technology shares reporting $1.89 versus $1.71. They're up 4.33%. We got this lower shelf right over here. So that's Minervini shelf pattern. It looks pretty good as they bounce out of that. We look at MongoDB earlier. Elastic shares continue to fall, fell 27%, reported 35 cents versus 25 cents on revenues of 347 million. People were expecting a lot better on the results, and they did not get it. Share earnings were up 40% year-over-year quarter. And on to Autodesk. Elastic continues to fall on their quarterly earnings. So Autodesk initially gapped up and then sold off near the close. Shares rise 6% last night after reporting Q2 EPS $2.15 versus $2. Continuing in semiconductors, NXP approved additional $2 billion buyback authorization, and they're rising 3% on that news. Lam Research increases quarterly dividend from $2 to $2.30. It's up marginally at 2.97%. Finally, in semiconductors, Intel company is discussing various scenarios, including a split of its product design and manufacturing business, as well as which factory projects may potentially be scrapped. So the people who asked not to be identified because the deliberations were private. So Intel bounces about 10%, but they have fallen quite a bit from 51 down to 20. So that is the news of the day. What have we done today? You just take a look at our portfolio. So we added XLB after hours of today. XLB has pulled back here, tried to break out, pull back again. And this looks like a double bottom. guess my mind is thinking faster than my fingers. So pull back to 87.55, then pull back lower to 86.41. Try to break out again. And pull back to 87.22. And today it just bounced into the pivot. Had a little bit of a handle here. And then we propel forward. So let's take a look. What are some of the top issues in XLB? Reorient my little picture over here. Biggest holding seems to be as Linde PLC. Kind of resembles a little bit of what XLB is doing. It's in the pivot zone, was up 1.17 today. Sherwin-Williams. So Linde has index weight of 21%. Sherwin-Williams is at 8%. And Sherwin-Williams popped out of the pivot zone today. This is definitely a double bottom. Here's the middle, the double bottom, pulls lower, and then it works on the right side. Here's the handle. If you'll allow me to draw a handle, there's our handle. Yeah. Slowly it breaks out, up 2.43%. Earnings are increasing 11% this year and another 12% next year. Next on the list is Ecolab. Ecolab markets cleaning and sanitizing and pest elimination. So it's gone into the pivot. Tried to break out a pivot area, pulled back to the 50-day moving average, bounced up again, came down below the 50-day, and now it has cleared the pivot zone and has broken through 250, up 1.24% today. Freeport-McMoRan, which is also in the metals and mining, comes in at just under 6%. Ecolab is at 6%. APD, Air Products and Chemicals, comes in at 5.83%. It's still below the pivot. Dumont Corporation, which is also in metals and mining. This is, I think, pushing the building materials up. It's up 0.39%, comes in at 5.33%. CTVA, Corteva, it's at under 4%. It's not working really on a double bottom, but it's working on a cup with a handle. It tried to pivot here, the breakout failed, and now it has made it into the pivot zone, up 0.53% today. Corteva, and then we got Dow Incorporated. It's in at 3.5%. It's still not quite working on the right side of the base. Look at these numbers though. Earnings supposed to be up 17% this year, 44% next year. But we need to get some buying action in here. Nucor, which is in the steel area. So you can find it, I believe, in the mining and metals area as well, is 3.5% of the holdings. It's still on the lower edge of its base building. Finally is DuPont de Nemours at 3.34. Has been working on breaking into the pivot, sold off, like we saw earlier in another company, and then now it is firmly in the pivot, up about 1.5% today. So that's XLB. Metals and mining, or 3M. Diversified operations, had a gap up here, continues moving on up. We put a spread trade on here, 325, 330, I believe. And we took half of the spread off, so we had 10 spread options. We took half of that off as it continues to move up. 332 was, I believe it was 128 to 132. So we'll probably take off the rest of that next week. Kava, haven't really done anything. It gapped up here. We bought at 108 and 109. 500 additional shares. It's been holding the gap. So as long as it holds that, we're going to continue to hold. All the other shares we bought at 80. So that's been a nice move. We bought right over here somewhere. I believe it was on this day. Continue to hold IPO OS. Bought it right about here. $30.99 is maybe it was right. Yeah, it had been closer to here is where we bought it. Our average cost went up because we did add to it as it moved up. FTAI. We had 6 spread options on FTAI. Just trying to open the spread channel here. We did the 120, 125. So we took off 4 of those spreads, and we're hoping that this will keep running higher. FTAI is engaged in aviation leasing and supply of aftermarket components for aircraft engines globally. App. We, on this move down, we took our profits. We kept 100 shares, so we had 500 for profits here. Added some after the close yesterday and added some more. So we have 200 shares of that as it continues to move on up. We did nothing with ACGL. We just continue to hold as we think it looks a little bit extended at the moment. Continue to hold Bowhead Specialty. We've been adding. We'll just see if this kind of sets up again and starts to move, but this is a IPO. A-Lab did come down a little bit. It's right about kind of ended where our buy point is. So we'll continue to hold that and continue to watch it. Take a look at Netflix. We're buying right over here. We kept adding. We added a little bit over here, so continue to watch on Netflix. NVIDIA said we're going to take a look at this. It almost looks like a triple top here. Did have a lighthearted bounce today on low volume. See this higher volume here. Buying comes back in lower volume. We'll continue to watch that. Earnings disappointed a number of people who had been holding this. So we'll just continue to watch that. The danger was right over here. Low volume buying on the up. This is typically looks at like wedging. So that's something to keep watching. Move on to Microsoft. Microsoft is about 1%, and it's pretty good volume here. So I would continue to keep your eyes on Microsoft, Meta. It's bouncing, still pretty low volume on Meta. It's a concerning sign, but it is holding up. We'll see if it can get back to its pivot at 542.91 is a pivot. Google got a lighthearted bounce here. Not much move, although it is up 1%. It's below most of its moving averages. Tesla. Once again, pretty low volume. He bounced down here with its low volume. We did give it a warning sign. Looks like a little bit of wedging. Amazon. A pretty nice move here. Pretty good volume. Just continue to watch that, see if it can get above its 50-day moving average. Apple. Apple is a little bit of a pullback, bounces off the 10-day moving average, 0.34%. We do have a short, 13 short options at 335. I think they may expire today, so we'll have to take a look at that a little later. And Eli Lilly. Got a nice little bounce there, up 2%. It's got a little bit of a V action here. We'll see if it can hold this. And take a look at Broadcom. It's working on a base here. Nice little cup with a handle here. We'll see if it gets some volume in here. Its earnings are in 6 days. So that is a worrying part. You could look at an option, see what the price is, as long as it's not too expensive. One option that doesn't cost any more than 4% of the cost of based on the price of the stock. So take a look at Toast. Toast continues to build a base, and this cup with handle tried to break out and failed. And it looks like a base on base pattern, so we'll continue to watch that. This is kind of the Darvis box. The great red lines here. This is a box. Nicholas Darvis said don't buy until it breaks out of this box. So that's kind of a wrap up. We're going to have a weekend update on Sunday. Hope everybody has a great weekend. Enjoy your Labor Day weekend. Go out there and continue to build beautiful memories. Keep working on your goals and your activities, and keep amazing everyone around you. In the meantime, go out there and have a great evening. Thanks a lot. Remember, Mornings with Michael is for information and educational purposes only. It's your responsibility to do your own due diligence. Find out what's right for you.